Hello everyone, this is Nemernin, and today we will be doing a video talking about Monotype Champions League. Now, I'm not too 100% familiar with the history of this tournament, since this is my first time seeing it. Allegedly, this has not been a new tournament, this has happened before, but from what I have read, it appears to just be a tournament where the players get to choose what the format gets to be, and for this tournament, it seems like they chose um, Mega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire to be the main event, as there are three matches per match, if that makes sense. But yeah, you know how there's usually like four SB matches per team versus. Essentially, it's like that for Auras this time around. But yeah. And also, alternatively, SV only has one slot, but thankfully there's a BO3 slot as well that also sometimes features SV. So, with that in mind, there will be not too many replays to look at, but there should still be some notes that we can take from these replays. So, without further ado, let's go take a look at some of these matches. And remember, this is the first week, so what we see here is going to be very likely experimental, especially since SV is not one of the primary targets for prep this time around, so people may be bringing old reliables, but we'll see if there's any innovation here. So our first replay will be between Rio Vidal and Slice Peace. Rio Vidal is opting for a relatively standard fighting team featuring a little bit of Keldeo to shake things up, over the usual Urshifu Rapid Strike. And Slice is opting for another fighting team, not letting go of Urshifu Rapid Strike, but instead bringing Breloom. Breloom was catching popularity towards the end of MPL, so this is not super surprising. And we have seen Keldeo teams before as well in MPL, but they weren't as common or rising as Breloom was. Although Keldeo itself is still a relatively decent mod, so yeah. But I think in the mirror matchup here, depending on which person has Choice Scarf Iron Valiant, because Iron Valiant can choose between a mixed set or a Choice Scarf set. I think usually Choice Scarf is what is used most of the time, but I have seen some people drop it. And it is very possible that Rivadal could be opting for Choice Scarf Sneasler instead, but we do not know for sure based on the team setup. But yeah, let's just take a look and see how this match goes. Alright, so we see the Leaf Caesar. Alright, so it is not going to be the Choice Scarf, it will be Balloon instead. We get the Scam Claw going out right away. Rocky Helmet, good at proc, but the poison will go off on the Great Tusk. Not exactly ideal for Slice Piece, but it is what it is. Rocky Helmet getting some more chip on the Great Tusk. Again, not ideal. But the Rocky Helmet will be removed from Rivadal's own Great Tusk, allowing Slice Piece to be able to Rapid Spin for free. However, with the poison damage, is going to eventually fall down, and Slice Piece does want to remove those rocks later on, so we are going to see him swap out. Rivadal is going to click the Headlong Rush onto the Urshifu, getting a very nice 53%. Now, Sneasler's going to come in, get a good close combat off, and knock out the Urshifu, who did not happen to be a Choice Scarf. Very likely Punching Glove, since that is a relatively common set. To see the Iron Valiant get a free KO onto the Iron Hands, as Rivadal did not want to risk the Gallade getting super killed yet, as they do need that to actually check the Iron Valiant. Breloom is going to come out. Breloom is sadly going to be faster than the Gallade, so we're going to see a Bullet Seed get used. All 5 hits going through, and an unlucky critical hit is going to make sure that Rivadal's Sneasler gets KO'd. Iron Valiant is going to come in on Rivadal's side, as the Iron Hands will be replacing the Breloom. Iron Hands will fall similarly to Rivadal's, and we see the Gallade from Slice Beast come out. Psycho Cut is going to one-hit KO the Kelio, and now Rivendell is going to send in their own Gallade. Gallade will be getting a Psycho Cut that will successfully KO Size Piece's Iron Valiant, but now Gallade is in a rough situation because now they have to take Bullet Seed from the Breloom. Breloom obviously going to very easily take care of it, as the Moonblast will take care of the Breloom. And now it's up to Gallade to KO the Iron Valiant. Will Iron Valiant get a crit? No, they will not, and that will be that. Size Piece will successfully win, and also that critical hit on Psycho Cut did not matter. Rivendell was going to die regardless. But yeah, that would be that. Yeah, so Size Piece was just able to preserve the Gallade better and was able to wear down Rivendell's team a lot quicker, especially due to that lucky crit from the Breloom towards the end. That definitely saved him a lot, because had that not happened, the Sneasler would have definitely been able to KO the Breloom with either Dire Claw or Close Combat. Actually, most likely just Dire Claw, but yeah, getting that additional turn helped him a lot with finishing up the rest of the match, as this is a very sack-heavy matchup, so yeah. But yeah, well played to Size Piece and Rivendell. Not much to note on this match. Definitely did seem like this Breloom was a loaded dice set, so yeah. Not really much else to comment on, just a very nice match overall. So let's move on to Chaitanya versus Memphis Depay. This is a part of BO3. Not exactly sure who is favored on either side, but we do know that Chaitanya will be playing a fairy team against Memphis Depay's drag team. Now, those of you who may know, Dragon does still have a decent matchup with the fairy due to the fact that the double steel core, is still very solid. And fairy does not have great ways of dealing with them consistently. So Chaitanya is going to have to play very well to get around that steel core, and let's not even begin to mention the fact that without screens, Raging Bolt kind of massacres the team very harshly. So let's see how this match goes. So we are going to see Hisui and Gudra lead into Chaitanya's Klefki. The Thunder Wave is going to go off immediately, crippling the Hisui and Gudra, but only by chance, as the Clefable is going to come out. Our Caldon is going to get the Flash Cannon out and get a ton of damage onto the Clefable. Clefable's Moonblast not going to do a ton to the Archaludon, as we see Flash Cannon keep repeatedly being used. Light Screen's going to come out, and Stealth Rock is going to go down. I just realized Chaitanya doesn't have Hatterin. That's a very interesting choice. As spikes go down, one of the few ways you can wear down Dragon is with those spikes, so yeah, now we see the Fluttermane come in. Moonblast is going to go through. We confirm that the Gudra is leftover, so based on that Moonblast damage, I think that's going to be Choice Scarf, not Hatterin, Choice Scarf, Fluttermane, which is not exactly standard, but we have seen it quite a few times in this tournament, or in MPL, so not super surprised. We do see the Moonblast get a special attack drop on the Latias, not sure how much that's going to matter. But we are going to see a light screen go down from Klefki again as the spikes go down. Combine is going to be used by Raging Bolt, and now Chaitanya is going to be in a little bit of a pickle because now Raging Bolt, 2 Combine boosts. That's not exactly ideal either, as Close Combat is going to go through from the Iron Valiant, but it will not do enough, as the +2 is going to be enough to get the KO on the Iron Valiant. Fluttermane's still too strong and will force out the Raging Bolt. Heavy Slam is going to be used by the Gudra, forcing Azumarill to use its Citrus Barrier early. Archaludon's going to come out to counter the Azumarill, as the knockoff will go through and knock off the leftovers from the Archaludon. Archaludon going to stay in and click Flash Cannon as the Azumarill struggles to try and break through it. Flash Cannon will get the KO on Azumarill, and now Fluttermane is going to come back out. Now KOing the Archaludon, but Archaludon has done enough for what it needed to do. It stopped Azumarill from being able to do anything. and that's all it realistically need to do, as the Enamorus is going to come in. Mist Ball going to go through. Unfortunately, Mist Ball did not get to raise Enamorus's special attack there, but it looks like that will not matter anyway, as Dragon Bolt's U-turn will stop the Enamorus from doing anything. Light Screen is going to be used again, but Memphis Debate is just going to use this time to rack up those Calm Mind boosts. The Thunder Clap should be enough to KO, yep, and that will be that. And once again, Dragon just gets the win, and it's almost exactly like how I said it. The Raging Bolt is just going to be a very big problem for Titania's team to deal with. The rocks certainly didn't help either, but the Light Screen just also not enough to deter all of Memphis Depay's offensive pressure. Excuse me. And in general, it was just hard for him to break through that core. Suya Gudra would just come in every single time and soak up those Moon Blasts and threaten out Flutterbane just very easily. And Archaludon would just disable Azumarill from really being able to punch any holes through the team. So, yeah, very unfortunate for Chaitanya, but that is just how this matchup tends to go, because even though Fairy does have the type advantage, it does not have the actual team advantage because of how strong the double steel core is, and because of the oppressive strength that Raging Bolt has. So, yeah. And Fairy doesn't really have any good switch-ins for Raging Bolt either. I mean, look at Chaitanya's team. If it weren't for screens, his team would be getting one-shot left and right by the +2 Raging Bolt, or even just +1 would be doing an insane amount of damage considering they have rocks. So, yeah. Not much to comment on here, so let's move on to the next match. As we see Siphicon versus Manana 999. Siphicon is going to opt for a Dragon Team, and Manon is going to also opt for a Dragon Team. Now, Siphicon's Dragon Team is going to feature Kyurem and Dragonites, interestingly enough, as Manon is going to opt for the Roaring Moon and Garchomp, as well as Kyurem. So, yeah. This is roughly what we would see in MPL and MWP, but the only difference is Dragonite is a bit of a unique choice this time around. I'm really curious to see what Siphicon is going to do with this Dragonite. Will it be a fat set, or will it be a more offensive set? Because looking at Siphicon's team, maybe it's a it could very well be a fat set, since they already have two somewhat decently strong attackers, and he could use a little bit of extra health for bulk, but it's very likely that this is just an offensive set. Maybe it's choice band so that I can pick off any underlying threats towards the late game, and the Kyurem is instead like a choice spec set that can help break open holes in the team, or it's even a Dragon Dance set. There's a lot of different options that we can go for, and Manon is going to be using very likely a Choice Scarf Roaring Moon with a standard mixed attacker Kyurem set. And that's not even to speak about what either Dragon Bolt is going to be doing, but I assume they're going to be relatively standard. I think Manon's is probably going to be a Thunder Wave set, while Siphicon's is going to be either Choice Band or Choice Scarf. We'll see. So we're going to lead with the Dragon Bolt immediately from Siphicon. Garchomp going to easily survive the, okay, not easily, but it will survive the Dragon Darts from the Dragon Bolt, and successfully gets the KO with Scale Shot. Now also raising its speed, Siphicon is going to opt to remove Dragonite's Multi-Scale just to get the finishing KO on Garchomp, preventing Garchomp from getting any hazards up, which could be ideal for... Oh, that's not going to be good though. Siphicon immediately frozen by the Kyurem Ice Beam, and that might just be the match, because Hisui and Gudra being frozen there makes it very difficult for Siphicon to swap into any special attacks that may be thrown. And it turns out Manon is actually a Dragon Dance substitute set, which is not what I was expecting at all, based on their team comp. But we are going to see the Dragon Darts go through. Sadly, Archaludon is still going to be able to very easily wall this set. Might very likely force it out, but it looks like Manon is very adamant on staying in, as we see Archelon put up the Stealth Rock. And now Dragbolt has +2, but I still believe Archelon should be fine. Yeah, and Manon recognizes this and swaps out. Flash Cannon is going to be used, but to no avail against Manon's Hisui and Gudra, as Archelon will follow up with a Body Press. Body Press will get the KO on Hisui and Gudra, opening up Manon's team to more retaliation, especially from Siphicon's Raging Bolt, as we see Kyurem come in. The Draco Meteor going to come through, now being revealed, and now Hisui and Gudra is going to come in to try and take it. Thankfully, Draco Meteor misses, so Siphicon gets to save a little bit of HP on Hisui and Gudra, as he tries to thaw out, but unsuccessfully does not get to do that, as Archelon is going to come back in. Dragapult, once again, not going to be able to break through this, as we've seen before, but maybe Manon is going to try and set up a little bit more this time around, but I don't think they can afford to do that, as they will once again be forced to swap out. Flash Cannon going to be used again, as Manon's Archelon is going to get a stamina boost. Raging Bolt now coming in, losing its balloon, but it will not need that balloon for this matchup, unless maybe Roaring Moon might be able to get a revenge kill on it, but I think it would just use Outrage anyway. Thunderclap going to go through, as Siphicon is going to sack the Raging Bolt, getting a lot of damage off on that Kyurem. That critical hit actually may matter quite a bit, because now Manon can't even afford to swap out. Roaring Moon going to come in now, Outrage being used, so we are now confirming that it is Choice Scarf. Or very likely Choice Scarf, because I don't think non-Choice Scarf sets use Outrage, but I might be wrong about that. Body Press is going to be used, and the Roaring Moon is going to fall. Dragonbolt, the only mod left against the Archelon, and I think we know where this is going to be going. So Archelon is just going to very easily get a Flash Cannon off. Phantom Force is going to be used, but after Dragonbolt comes out of that Phantom Force, we will see Archelon use Flash Cannon and get the KO, and as well as the victory. And Siphicon will win the match. Now, unfortunately, we did not get to see anything from the Dragonites, so that is very unfortunate. But we did see a rather interesting Dragonbolt set. I was not expecting the substitute set from Manon, and I believe that had it not been a Dragon Mirror, that would have been a very dangerous set to run into, but it was a Dragon Mirror, and Siphicon did have Archelon, who very easily stifles these physical Dragonbolt sets. So that was unfortunate, and Manon also was not able to get any hazards up, which would have given him a very good advantage against Siphicon's team, as spikes or rocks would just completely wear down and stifle a lot of Siphicon's mons, especially the Raging Bolt and the Kyurem. Assuming the Kyurem didn't have heavy duty boots, which I don't think it did, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah. It would mainly just be able to wear down Archelon and Hisui and Gudra a bit easier. And I thought that the Hisui and Gudra being frozen would have been worse for Siphicon, but it actually turned out it didn't matter, especially since it got that miss earlier against the Kyurem. So yeah, very unfortunate. But Siphicon did play solidly, and the Dragonite basically only lost multi-scale and didn't really do anything else. I think it may have been Choice Band though, based on these two moves, but it could have still been Dragon Dance as well. But yeah, that'll be it for this match, so let's move on to the next one, which will be Fentropy versus Twinkie. Both of these players are extremely good, and it looks like Fentropy is trying to experiment with flying as well. We see a special, or not special, but I guess it will be special, but Landers Incarnate with the double steel bird. So yeah, from what I've seen, I think this is probably going to be the common defensive core. We're going to see a lot of double steel birds along with the Dragonite. That definitely seems to be the most consistent core that I've been seeing so far. So yeah, seems like I wasn't too far off on what I thought would be the meta for flying after a bit. I'm surprised there's no Tornadisterian, but we'll see. And this is a matchup that normally would have been very favorable for flying, but now without Gliscor, let's see how this goes. As we're going to start off with a Skarmory going into the the Galarian Slowking. As we are going to see the Kustat Berry come out immediately and get an additional spike off on Twinkate's Poison team. Landorus is going to come out, and the Earth Power will completely obliterate the Alolan sorry. We are going to see the Salazzle, interestingly, coming out. Salazzle is not a mon that you will often see on Poison, so very likely the Salazzle is probably going to be a Subtox set, but it did just use Flamethrower, so maybe it's actually a special attacker instead. We are going to see the Taunt, Superpower going to come through on the Enamorous, as we're going to see the Future Sight being just a massive threat in general. Ice Beam going to come through and do quite a bit of damage to the Enamorous as Healing Wish gets used immediately. Salazzle going to take a bit of damage from the Stealth Rock. Future Sight isn't going to hit anyone, as we're going to see the Galarian Zapdos get some damage off with the Brave Bird, and nothing on Twinkate's team is going to like taking that. Unfortunately, its peers, the Pekka wouldn't mind taking it quite a bit, as the Nasty Plot is going to come through. We're going to see the bulk up from Corviknight, so it's not going to be the standard default set. Taunt is going to be used, as we are going to see more Corviknight nonsense go on, as the Brave Bird is going to be used a little bit. Shadow Ball going to finish off the Corviknight, as now we're going to see Landorus come in and get the Healing Wish buff. Toxapex going to come in, but probably not going to like what's going to happen next. Yeah, the Psychic is going to eliminate Twinkay. So Landorus is going to be forced out. The Ice Beam almost getting to KO. Oh, but it gets the Freeze, and the Freeze stays. Yeah, the Freeze stays for both turns. Zapdos unable to move for all 3 turns, and look, the hazards just go away. And the Future Sight gets the KO. Oh, that is so unfortunate. The Psychic is going to finish off the Pekka, but with that unfortunate freeze, it's going to be very hard for Venturpy to come back into this match, as the Ice Beam is going to get the KO. And I don't believe Dragonite is going to have what it takes to eliminate the Galarian Weezing, sadly. Yeah, the Galarian Weezing is just too tanky. The Will-O-Wisp is going to go through, and I believe that should be the match. As the Pain Split is going to go through. Yeah, I think the Toykei just gets to beat up the Dragonite here. Such a Strange Steam going to go through, put it down to 2%, and the Burn will finish it off. And that will be the unfortunate freeze on this Galarian Zapdos. I think if that freeze doesn't happen, I think Venturpy actually does get to win this. Because Venturpy played that very well otherwise, but the freeze does just barely stop Galarian Zapdos from being able to have more impact on that game. Even a little bit more chip would have been very substantial for Venturpy's victory there. It wasn't exactly a 100% guaranteed victory, but it definitely could have been a victory had that not happened. Just think about everything that happened during the time that Zapdos was frozen. When Zapdos was frozen, the hazards got removed. He was able to... I think he healed himself, and he was able to pivot as well and get a Future Sight off as well. Yeah, that was just unfortunate as well. But, yeah, I think normally Flying would win this very hard if they had Gliscor. Even though this team does seem like it might have been, like, somewhat decently equipped to handle Gliscor, but I still don't think it would have been the best. But yeah, Venturpy definitely had the advantage here a little bit. This Taunt Enamorous set is very interesting. I'm gonna have to ask him later what this was about, but I did see that it did stall out for a little bit, essentially, and get the Healing Wish off, which was actually very beneficial to the game plan of Venturpy's team. And Twinkay's team, very interested to know what the Salazzle was. since it has Flamethrower, which is not particularly... Well, Flamethrower is used even on the stall breaking sets, but I'm not sure exactly what it may have been. Because the, normally you would go Corrosion, Toxic, and the Corrosion Toxic would, basically be really good against Steel. So this may have been like a Steel killer set. That would have messed up Heatran, messed up Arcaludon specifically as well. And also Hisuian Goodra would probably not like seeing this either, so this very well may have been a Steel Killer set, and this was supposed to be used to help deal with flying. But yeah, this is a very, very bulky team. That being said, this doesn't seem to be very, doesn't have a lot of strong breakers, I would say. Since Galarian Slowking and Salazzle kind of take a little bit of time to get their breaking going, and Pekka isn't exactly the greatest breaker. It can break, but it's not, like, super good at it. And the rest of these ones are defensive, so definitely a very slow working team, but it definitely works against Venture. In this particular instance, the freeze did help, but even without the freeze, Galarian Slowking was just able to break open the team, thanks to access to Ice Beam, and Future Sight just doing a ton of work. But yeah, very unfortunate for freeze, but I think both sides did play and prep pretty well, so this was just overall a really good match, but very unfortunate that that freeze did go through. Otherwise, really nice match. But yeah, not really much else to comment on for either team. I have seen Galarian Zapdos quite a bit though, so maybe that mount is on the combo. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll see. Alright, so now we have LBN versus Electrain Heart. LBN is opting for a Fairy team, while Electrain is opting for a Dark team. Dark is going to be featuring a Hoopa and a Roaring Moon, which isn't super common, I believe. And LBN is going to be featuring Tinkaton Fairy, Double Steel Fairy with no Hatterene. This is very interesting. I haven't seen... That's 2 games now where I have not seen Hatterene featured on Fairy. I wonder if Hatterene's on the fall off in tournament play, but we'll have to see in future games. So let's move on to see how this match goes. So here comes the Azumarill immediately leading out. Roaring Moon obviously not going to want to have to deal with that, so Azumarill is going to go for the Play Rough. Vandabuzz taking a ton of damage, as we're going to see Azumarill just go for another Play Rough. Vandabuzz cannot stall this out, so it will opt for a Toxic and move itself from play. Azumarill will have to eat that Toxic though, and it's probably not going to like it, unless it is the Choice Band set, in which case it will not mind that whatsoever. Play Rough is going to stay and be used again. Azumarill is deceptively tanky, so it does get to take that Thunderbolt, and now removes 2 Mons from Electrain Heart's team. Oh, the Iron Valiant immediately outspeeding and KOing the Meowscarada. So Meowscarada was going to be Choice Band. As we now see the Tinglu come in, Earthquake gets used, and Superpower is now going to be used by LBN's Enamorus. The Rocky Helmet is going to get a little bit of chip on the Enamorus, as we're now going to see Hisuian Samurott come in. Hisuian Samurott not going to enjoy that superpower very much, as Enamorus just keeps racking up those defensive boosts. The Rock Slide from Roaring Moon will not be enough, especially after the +2 defense buffs, as Enamorus is now just going to be able to take that down. And I believe at this point it is pretty clear that the Enamorus will be able to destroy the Tinglu, and that will be that. Very quick match. Now, Fairy is favored against Dark, but it usually isn't this one-sided. I believe LBN just made very good and defiant plays, especially with the leading Azumarill immediately. And Electrain Heart leading with Roaring Moon was not ideal. Maybe if they had led with Meowscarada, could have been a little bit better. Even Tinglu lead would have been okay. Since sacking Tinglu turn 1 isn't exactly the worst, and I don't think Azumarill even kills Tinglu, even if it was Choice Band, in 1 hit. And if it does, that bond is truly insane, but I believe it doesn't, so Tinglu should have been able to take at least 1 hit, and then it got, like, Rocks off, also Rocky Helmet Chip as well, and then Yaskarada would have just been able to force it out afterwards. But unfortunately, that did not happen. So, yeah. And Electrane Heart was definitely expecting to get the KO on Azumarill with the Thunderbolt, but like I said before, Azumarill is deceptively tanky. Especially since I believe it does actually invest in HP due to the fact that it doesn't need to invest in, Actually, no, that's not true. It doesn't invest in HP. I'm pretty sure it still puts a lot of its points in speed and attack, so it's just naturally somewhat tanky, I believe. And anyone who's used Azumarill knows this, because it's, even though it's usually paired with screens, it does just sometimes take hits surprisingly well, so yeah. And this is just an example of that. But yeah, the Enamorous superpower sweep was definitely not ideal, because with Hoopa Unbound eliminated from the match, Enamorous could just stack up those superpower boosts and it wouldn't really be threatened by any of Electrane Heart's remaining physical attackers. So yeah, Albion's aggressive playstyle there definitely getting him a well-deserved victory. And it's unfortunate that Electrane Heart just did not get the lead matchup that they were expecting, so yeah, very unfortunate. But that is high-level Monotype at times. Just one wrong move, and that could have cost you the entire matchup. Especially in a metagame as volatile as this, so yeah. Not much to really comment on, because, I mean, the game just kind of played itself out. But let's see how the next match goes. As our final match will be between Crashy and Scarfire. This is also a part of the BO3. Scarfire is going to opt for a Dragon Team, as is Crashy. Crashy is going to be opting for a Latias team with Hydreigon and Raging Bolt. We've been seeing a lot more Raging Bolt. We didn't see a lot of Raging Bolt in MPL, so it's interesting that we see it now. I think the reason why we may not have seen it may have been because of Gliscor, and the fact that Gliscor can kind of mess up Raging Bolt teams, but looks like now the Gliscor ban Raging Bolt is on the rise, which I guess shouldn't be super surprising, but considering Flying's presence and performance in MPL, I didn't think it would be this noticeable, but clearly it is noticeable, because we've been seeing it a lot already. Like, this is already more than week 1 of MPL that we're seeing Raging Bolt, and this is in a tournament with less SV games overall, so this is just very funny to see. But yeah, Scarfire's team is gonna have Roaring Moon and Latias as well, so we're probably gonna be seeing a very sack-heavy matchup here. And Hydreigon, I think Crashy may be favored with the Hydreigon, but we'll see. So Dragapult is going to come out on both sides. Scarfire is going to swap out. Neither of them are going to really risk. Neither of them really want to risk losing their Dragapult this early in the match, so they're both going to swap out to Archaludon. Crashy's Archaludon opts to go for the aggressive play, getting off a Draco Meteor and putting Scarfire's Dragapult at Archaludon at very low HP. Raging Bolt is going to come in on Scarfire's side and try and click Cloud Mine, but Crashy's Hisuian Gudra will be able to stomach a +1 Draco Meteor, as the Dragon Tail is going to force out the Raging Bolt. Hydreigon now coming out on Crashy's side as Scarfire responds with Archaludon. Archaludon going to be swapped out as Crashy will drop a Draco on Scarfire's Hisuian Gudra. Raging Bolt on Crashy's side is now coming out as the Dragon Tail comes through from Scarfire's Hisuian Gudra, as both Hisuian Gudras are staring each other down. Crashy going to opt for a knockoff and remove Scarfire's leftovers, as Scarfire goes for a Dragon Tail, also getting a GUI proc on themselves in the process, allowing Archaludon to freely get a body press off. But yes, Crashy does go for the body press, and Scarfire opts to sack the Raging Bolt as a response. Hisuian Gudra on Crashy's side going to come out to respond to Scarfire's Dragapult, who successfully does land a Draco Meteor and knocks out Crashy's Hisuian Gudra. Latias is going to come in and get a Draco Meteor off once again. Ooh, an unfortunate Draco miss is going to cost Crashy a little bit of time, as Scarfire's Hisuian Gudra is going to be able to stay alive for just a little bit longer. Hydreigon will get the finishing KO on it though, as Roaring Moon is going to come in. Crashy going to put in his Archaludon. as it will remove the leftovers. And Scarfire is going to put in their own Archaludon, who gets KO'd by Crashy's Draco Meteor. Dragapult is going to come in, and since we can confirm it's special, Archaludon will not be ideal for that. So Crashy opts to sack their Raging Bolt, and Scarfire's Dragapult is now slightly weakened. Crashy going to go for the aggressive Choice Scarf Latios Draco Meteor there, which will get the KO on the Dragapult, which is very good for him. Unfortunately, Scarfire has Dragon Dance, which will not be ideal for Crashy, as we are now going to see the Royman get another plus speed buff, Jesus Christ. But Archaludon going to come in, unfortunately not going to be able to get that KO, and the +2 Roaring Moon is not going to be outsped by anything on Crashy's team. So with that being said and done, I believe this match has concluded, and Crashy will fall to Scarfire. And yeah, well played to Scarfire in this particular matchup. Managed to the rare Dragon Dance Roaring Moon, because usually it's Choice Scarf Roaring Moon. So the fact that it was Dragon Dance this time around actually did mess up Crashy quite a bit. But I don't think Crashy really played particularly wrong here. I think a lot of people would have done the exact same thing and would not have expected the Dragon Dance Roaring Moon. And Crashy played well outside of that, so I think both sides played well. Scarfire just had the slight prep advantage, and that's all there is to that. But yeah, a well-played game between both sides, and that will conclude this video. So yeah, very good games from MCL this week. So I'm not exactly sure if next week is going to be the same format or not, but we will see as time goes on. I do think that the games that we saw have told us a pretty clear picture of what the SV metagame is starting to look like. So flying is definitely significantly knocked down in viability by the removal of Gliscor. I mean, we knew this was going to happen, but I think this happened at a way more harsh rate than I thought it would be. Because even though we are seeing some flying teams do relatively well, like Venturepe's flying team did seem to be doing particularly well outside of that freeze, but I definitely think the lack of Gliscor makes it a bit more difficult to just generally easily win matchups, and now flying teams have to try significantly harder, not slightly harder, significantly harder to win the matchups that they once didn't have to try as hard to win. So flying definitely going to take a massive hit in viability because of this, and Dragon is, again, benefiting a lot from this, because now that flying doesn't have Gliscor to keep in check their double steel core, they're going to find that it's going to be very easy to get progress against flying super easily, and just generally it will be very rough for flying to make things happen in this metagame. They'll still have their decent matchups and good matchups, and it's still a relatively solid defensive typing, or defensive type, but they are going to find it harder to get those victories. And it seems like, as a response to that, we're seeing a lot more offensive, or slightly more offensive builds, as we saw with Venturepe's team, and we've seen with other teams in the seasonals. So still gonna watch and wait to see what flying goes through as this metagame progresses. But yeah, Dragon still seems to be the dominant type, and again, it got slightly buffed by the removal of Gliscor, so maybe something will be done on Dragon. I think I said this before when Gliscor got banned. If Gliscor went, then something on Dragon has to be removed as well. Because right now, I'm definitely seeing Dragon just being way too oppressive, especially since it can just win matchups it really should not be winning, like against Fairy. So yeah, I definitely think something needs to be done about Dragon. I don't know which mod needs to go, but something definitely needs to happen, because it is definitely way too strong right now, especially with Gliscor being gone. So with that being said, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you all have a splendid day, and remember to take care of yourselves.